Okay, so this is gonna be really quick. This is a part 2 to the truth of the homeless population, or at least I think that's what the part 1 was called. But I'll put it in the description, and I think I have a homeless playlist. Well, I think I have like 3 to be honest, but one has my videos. But this is something else that I noticed. And this doesn't have anything to do with the abuse side, just like the other situations, because in the part 1 I mentioned the people that have been homeless by themselves ever since they were somewhere from like 7 to 16, and I mentioned the whole foster kid thing and probably a couple other things, but I didn't really mention the other situations that revolve around the adults. So I guess first I should say that this is kind of how it works with homelessness. It's people that are really young, and then it's people that are old, or at least sometimes in the middle, and they're in their like 40s. But other than that, it's kind of like people in their 20s and then under 18, and then it's people who are like elderly. Which where I'm at, those are the people that can get vouchers and stuff. And I mean, foster kids can too, but then there's a lot of mess with that. But it's like you either have to be elderly, old with some type of health issue, or just have some type of really serious health issue where you can't really do anything. But that's not even that true, because there's a veteran out here with no legs that can't get jacked. But I mean, yeah, so old with a health issue or a foster kid, and then you can get a voucher. Because it's not really, honestly, I guess I was so used to the racial stereotypes, I never really realized that it's only in certain areas where they try to give certain women, especially ones that are quote unquote black, vouchers and stuff, because of the whole racial stuff with the government being put in place of the dad, and then the women were willing to let their man go for the government to give them welfare and play dad and all that. But they really only do that stuff in certain areas anyway. And I'm now realizing that, because it's like, if I was on the East Coast, or at least in the South, and I just ran around having kids and couldn't remember who the dad was, I'd be able to get a voucher right now. Not that I want a voucher, but I just ended up thinking about it, because people kept trying to tell me I needed to get a voucher. Because, of course, there's the Let Me Help You lunatics, and then there's just other people that think that they're helping and giving good advice, even when you tell them that they really don't know what they're talking about. Because I kept telling people I can't get a voucher because I'm not elderly, I don't have any health issues, and none of the other ones that I actually have put on paper, especially with the physical health, because honestly, that's a real issue. Because my physical health, I mean, I'm getting better since I've been like trying to naturally heal myself, but honestly, if anyone remembers, it's pretty much been kind of like in shambles for the past 5 years. I'm definitely getting better though, and it was definitely worse at other points. But no, honestly, that's what I would need a voucher for, if anything. But yeah, so I'm not a foster kid and I'm not old. And then that's pretty much why I can't get a voucher. Which, like I said, I don't even want one anywhere. But people kept telling me to try to get one. But that's not what I was supposed to be talking about, to be honest. But I just ended up throwing that in there. Okay, so for my third go round trying to edit this in, I decided to say that whole little piece I just did because, with help of someone else who's really struggling with CPTSD but doesn't want to admit it because they feel like other people are doing worse, so they don't want to like get anything put on paper or try to get a voucher or anything, which makes sense because I don't want government assistance either. I was able to come to the realization that only people who are really old are able to get vouchers. And I've been to the foster care thing because all the programs around here are for foster kids, which is weird since they're still the ones homeless on the streets. But anyway, now to get to the point. So the point is that something that I've noticed is that there are some people, well, actually, there's a lot of people out here like this, especially on this one YouTube channel that I've been watching videos from recently. And I don't remember what it's called, but I'll put it in the description. And it's one of the channels where I feel like they're more so actually interviewing people and not doing the usual crap where they just run around exploiting people, like a lot of these other channels out here who mostly focus on finding people who escaped an abuse situation that are homeless or in a bad predicament, and then basically them finding their family and getting them back around their abusers, or trying to, which I already have a video about that. But I feel like this channel is actually really just interviewing people and not all the weird side stuff going on. But yeah. So, there's a lot of people who basically do everything right. Everything that people feel like people who are homeless aren't doing. Or even they feel like people who are poor living in bad neighborhoods aren't doing. So there's people that, some of this stuff people don't even consider anymore. And now it's kind of like taboo and offensive. But there's people who got married and then they had jobs. They had good jobs too. In fact, not even just jobs. They had actual careers. And that's different than working at a retail store or something. Like a career, that means they're like engineer, doctor, working in the school system, stuff like that. There's people who had all that going, and then it's like one thing happens and then everything falls and they're homeless, and then they get stuck because there isn't really any help, especially depending on the family situation. And it's not even always about abuse or having a messed up family system either. I even know young people around my age who are out here whose parents are dead, or at least the healthy parent is dead, so they can't stay with the other parent. So it's like their parents are dead and they can't help. I don't really know what happens with all the other relatives, to be honest, but yeah. I'm trying to think of a good example. Okay, so there's some people where they had a career. Then there was also a divorce, which messed everything up, and that can really that can really mess a lot of stuff up. And I think commonly in divorces, one of the people end up homeless. I think that's actually a common thing, with or without the kids. Because of course, when a divorce happens, I don't know why I keep choking. When a divorce happens, people are going to be fighting over money and who takes what and stuff like that. And it makes sense that one person will commonly end up homeless. Or there was another situation in the story I heard where the dude had this really good job, and then the company switches CEOs and they start laying people off, or the company just fails completely, and then that's that. Because after you work at a good job, these jobs that these people that are in these situations are working at, once you work there for as many years as they have, they don't really feel the need for a backup plan because they're comfortable and they feel like everything's okay, and then bam, this happens, and there's no backup plan, there's no pre-preparing, and then they lose everything. There's a saying that everybody's one paycheck away from being homeless or something like that, or one paycheck away from starving. I can't even remember exactly what it is, but it's something like that. Then there's other stories I've heard where somebody had a good job or a career, and then something happened with their bank and all their money's gone. And there was a lot of stuff like that happened to people, especially in the early 2000s. I'm sure it's happened to some people within the past couple of years and even now. And so like from, I don't know, like 2020 to now, I'm sure it's happened to plenty of people. Because like during the whole 2000s recession thing, a lot of people ended up homeless, and it took years for them to come back from it, from the different stories I've heard about that. And it's like, the only reason that people even make up these weird stereotypes anyway, where they try to lump everybody into this one group that makes everything their fault, is because society, especially in the US, and this is something that I've talked about ever since the Part 1 channel, back when I was doing the whole abuse evidence thing, where the mess, I'm just going to say the mess happened before I even go there. But I've been talking about for forever how, like, people do not like to admit anything that actually goes on in the world because, for one, it makes people feel guilty because they know that they're a part of society that doesn't take accountability for anything and they aren't helping each other. And two, the truth scares a lot of people. Like, people have to live in La La Land just to go to sleep at night and get through every day. And that's why, well, that's a small part of why I used to be called a Debbie Downer. Because, of course, when I was constantly getting called a Debbie Downer, it was commonly just for asking mandated reporters to do their job. But anyway, before I go there, there's even this conversation I had with someone, like back in, I think, 2021. So this was still kind of this wasn't in the really early days of the Evidence channel, but it was like, well, yeah, it was, because this was still on the Part 1 channel, I think. Or either it was on the Part 2, but anyway, I was having this conversation with someone about the stuff that goes on here, and they were like, it really just seems like everybody in America is living in their own fantasy land, and it's true, especially here because people are always saying, not in my America, and all that bull crap, or they're dragged in a left-right mind hurt and brainwashing crap, where they're trying to blame stuff on either party that's been going on for forever and a day, and acting like homeless people only existed after Biden got into office. And of course, I don't like any of those people, and if you even watch my videos, you already know that I don't fall for this left-right mind-hurting crap, and I already know that both wings are on the same bird and all of that stuff, so I don't fall into that. But it is funny watching both sides bicker and argue over stupid stuff. It really is, to be honest. Talking about some, and I just saw a comment like this too. Like, before Biden got in office, there was no homeless people. I mean, I don't know where people's minds are going. Not to mention, this whole rent increase agenda is a national, global thing. It's not even just going on here. And of course, I mean, America was already pretty expensive, and especially in certain states, like specifically on the West Coast. But of course, that's where a lot of this certain group of people that nobody can mention had moved to. They moved to the West Coast during and even before the gold rush thing with all their slave money, and they started their little silicon, whatever it's called, Silicon Valley businesses and all that, which I heard a lot of those are moving to Texas, but that's a side thing that I've slowly pieced together. But anyway, that's why it was more expensive on the West Coast, because I mean, that's where a lot of people were that had money. It's kind of like places that were sectioned off for the wealthy, but that's kind of a whole nother story. But anyway, that's just something that I noticed. So it's like there's the whole foster care and abuse escape side of homelessness, but then there's just the other people who one thing went wrong and then they end up homeless and then they're kind of stuck. At least they're stuck for some years. And I also mentioned in the part 1 that I knew this guy who spent he spent his whole adulthood, maybe even teen years working. And then one day, once he raised his kids and they went to college, he was like, why am I even doing this? Why am I being a slave to the systems? And he just started living the homeless life because he doesn't consider himself a vagabond. And honestly, I mean, if you're not traveling, you're definitely not. But yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it.